Hello, everyone. Well, I'm delighted to welcome you to another edition of the Tuckstone Insights. And I'm especially delighted to be joined by our most far-flung guest so far. That is Sally Connell, all the way from Sydney. So Sally's the Chief Transformation Officer of the Foxtel Group, which is Australia's leading entertainment and sporting content provider with over 4.6 million subscribers. Hi, Sally. How are you doing?
I'm well. Hi, Hugh. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. So many of you will be aware who've watched some of our Tuckstone Insights videos beforehand that we're fascinated by the HR career path, particularly its origins and how HR folk develop their operational and strategic skills, but also, and particularly in this case for this conversation with Sally, around where they take their career when maybe they reach the top of the ladder from an HR perspective, how they can diversify their skill set to add more value to the C-suite. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. So Sally, and you may disagree with me on this, has a relatively structured HR career path, but has now moved that on to being a Chief Transformation Officer. So perhaps we can start by talking quickly about your career summary and how you got to this point, but then I'm really interested in exploring how you then broadened out the role from the Chief People Officer to take on more responsibility.
Sure. And look, to be a bit contrary, I'm going to suggest that my career, I think, has been a little bit more unorthodox, I think, than the typical HR.
Okay, I thought you might.
So look, I guess, you know, as a teenager, lofty ambitions of always wanting to be able to make a difference and do purposeful work. So attracted to HR. I did an honours degree in organisational psychology. I love the mix of being able to do purposeful work with people in a commercial context.
Sure.
From a career perspective, it's been reasonably industry agnostic. For me, it's always been about the work, a strong people agenda, a strong transformational agenda. And for the first 8 or 9 years, my career was very traditional. I worked my way up through the ranks and then got into sort of a big business partnering role. And then I had a wonderful opportunity to work with a leader who was at the tail end of his career. And he gave me some really challenging advice, which was take risks in your career, work in the most promising area, and always ask questions and be curious. So that for me really was an inflection point, I think, in terms of the choices that I was making in terms of my career. So at that point, I then diversified. I took on a big OD role and then a transformational role. I took on line management and commercial roles, and always very much wanting to grow and stretch and develop sort of out, not necessarily up. And that all then culminated in my first CPO role, which was 10 years ago. And then here I am now as the Chief Transformation Officer. I've been at the Foxtel Group now for 7 years. Started off as the CPO, and then that's evolved to take on a broader role in terms of the sustainability and the ESG agenda, and now the CTO.
Brilliant. And I know when you and I first met, which was actually in London a few months ago, you kind of told me some of the summary of the Foxtel story and how much transformation has gone on there. So perhaps you can enlighten us with exactly what happened, because essentially, in order to survive, the business needed to completely transform the way it worked.
Well, in fact, it's actually a case study at one of the local business schools here, just in terms of transformation. So I am quite proud, I guess, of sort of the from to. 1995, 30 years ago, Foxtel burst onto the Australian media landscape and was the disruptor, the ultimate disruptor to the free-to-air networks, probably the similar to what was going on around the globe. And within about 16, 17 years, it became a 1 billion Aussie EBIT company, so incredibly successful. Though 2014, 2015, Netflix exploded onto the scene, and the organisation, look, it's fair to say, just wasn't ready. In fact, I think I shared a story with you that, I'd heard secondhand that a very senior leader of that era had said Netflix will run out of money. Now, how funny that is now. But it was a proliferation of digital competition for a big pay TV provider. Customers spending $90 a month in fixed term contracts, when Netflix was coming along offering a fraction of that price on a very mobile, agile package that you sort of come in and come out. So within a couple of years, the EBIT had halved, and I guess it's probably safe to say revenue was in free fall. And I guess as the leadership felt that they needed to do to maintain EBIT, they then took out a lot of cost. When you're taking out costs, it's very hard to then reinvest and transform. So they just weren't digitally prepared. And then in 2018, there was a decision made at board level, and they created what they call a Foxtel group, which is essentially four businesses plus Foxtel being brought together to achieve synergies, economies of scale, and an integrated end-to-end business of sports, advertising, streaming, and then the subscription business, the pay TV business. I was employee number one, had the leadership to be there, as you would do. You appoint the head of people first, the CEO was the second. And look, if we want to summarise the strategy, it was really to protect the core, reimagine the core though, and then obviously grow in new places, the classic McKinsey strategy, which is what we did. We protected the subscription business, obviously incredibly profitable, a lot of customers, and then grew our digital and streaming businesses, both in sports and non-sports. And I guess, the rest is history. If I would summarise where it was in 2018, content was king, and we had to make the king, which meant, making choices around content. What are customers going to pay and stay for? The product proposition just wasn't where it needed to be for both the pay TV product, as well as we just didn't have strong enough digital products. And then obviously the employee experience had to match the customer experience. So I guess rather than moving forward, we've now in multiple quarters of growth. And in fact, just on the 23rd of December, there was an announcement made that there's a DAZN, who's I think a very big global player, probably known in Europe and the US, has bought us. We're obviously going through the final phases in terms of due diligence and the like, but that hopefully the transaction will be completed in the next few months. So very exciting, and certainly something to be proud of.
Certainly something to be proud of, given where the journey that you've been on. So, okay, so that gives us an idea, I think, of how much transformation has gone on. I think what's interesting for maybe our listeners or viewers is, from an HR perspective, how you gained the credibility internally from a business perspective to pick up that transformation piece and diversify your HR remit. And also, I mean, most chief transformation officers I know come from a kind of strategic consultancy background, so from a Bain or McKinsey, or quite a technical background. And interestingly, if we're generalizing, may therefore need to be developing their cultural change experience and transformation experience. And I suspect you're the opposite. So I'm quite keen to find out, from a learning perspective, what has your HR core given you in this transformation role, and what have you needed to develop?
Well, I mean, and to be fair, early days, we did try that model, more of the strategy consultant, and it didn't quite land for probably the reasons which what you've outlined. So I guess, so how did I come about to be in the CTO? Well, my role was transformation, but swim lane was purely the people agenda, culture, capability, and employee experience, and then org. Yeah. So it started in that regard, and being employee number one, I was there from the ground up. So certainly having that history, that knowledge, that experience, and I guess being able to then, be across everything and know all other areas of the business and getting exposure to that, put me in, I guess, the driver's seat to be able to be considered, I guess, for the CTO. and if you think about, I guess, what does the CTO do? Because essentially I've got a team of Bain and smart strategy consultants reporting to me. So I don't need to come up with all of the incredibly intelligent and articulate and well analysed ideas. That's what they do. My job is one of change leadership and influence. So that, I think, all CPOs, the good CPOs who truly have the seat at the table, that's their black belt strength. It's one of relationships, it's one of trust, it's one of influence and being able to drive change, and be able to lead, I guess, as well. So, I think sometimes the very clever high EQ are a little bit lower on the EQ and influence, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that's what I can do. I can sort of, obviously I'm got decent enough commercial skills and strategic skills, but part of, I guess, my remit is turning strategy into execution, which I think a lot of CPOs are skilled at anyway. I think how did I sort of get to where I got to in a lot of ways is A, being in the ground up, B, doing a lot of the transformation anyway within my swim lane, and C, really investing in the commerciality of the business, really deeply understanding, being in all of the transformation steerco meetings, making sure that I was across every opportunity in the commercial way, not just sticking to my swim lane and just ignoring those or other work, but really making sure that I treated it like a mini MBA and learnt my craft by actually observing other people in the role. And then the role came up around about two years ago, and right time, right place.
Yeah.
The CFO who has currently had that in their portfolio, because often it fits under strategy or the the CFO role. They'd resigned and moved on, and as they do, as you're moving out, they sort of start to take a bit of a step back. So I took a step in and started to, I guess, informally lead the team. And then when it was contestable, when the job came up, well, then I guess because I'd had some runs on the board and, been seen to be, highly competent in functional area and was now demonstrating broader depth and breadth around commerciality and transformation, I got the gig.
Good. Fantastic. And I get your point. A CPO is running a team that is so diverse and does so many different things, whether we're employee relations, learning, development. That doesn't mean they're an expert in all of them, and I think having a commercial understanding and strategic understanding should mean you'd be able to make sense of the business, whatever they do, which is, from our perspective, why we feel HR skills and transformation skills are transferable across industry sectors, because proper CPOs and CTOs can go in and understand a business, whether it's providing content or manufacturing widgets. Have there been any areas within your HR background that have given you an advantage in the current position, do you think?
Definitely. I think at that inflection point, sort of early to mid-career, I didn't want to do BAU. I deliberately chose, I've got the T-shirt. I know how to be a HR business partner at director level. I want to be able to do something else. So I think jumping in the deep end and being brave and taking on roles that I had no experience and no exposure to. I mean, one example is I was asked to co-lead the offshoring of audit work for a professional services firm that I was working with in the Philippines. I didn't know what audit work really was. I'd never done offshoring. I'd never been to the Philippines. But I said, yeah, great, I'll give it a go. So I think the sum of all those opportunities and getting involved in, the mentor advice was work in the most promising area. Work in the area that's growing, that's disrupting, that's changing, has, I think, given me some great depth of skills, I guess, in terms of being able to be agile and be able to pivot and move from one thing to the next. Okay,
good. So, I mean, time is running away with us, as always, with these things, but I'd love you to get your crystal ball out, I suppose. I mean, it's interesting that you've combined transformation and the chief people officer. And there's an argument, of course, to say that every CPO role is transformative. So it seems like quite a natural thing for me. But What advice would you give chief people officers out there that are looking to broaden their remit and might be ambitious to take this further? I mean, we're firm believers in CPOs becoming CEOs. You know, that's what we'd like to see. And it seems that if you can take on that business understanding you're talking about and properly add broader value within a kind of cultural people context, then that would be a logical progression. But what advice would you give to our CPOs, CHROs, HR directors out there?
Well, maybe I just might start with just some general career progression advice, which I'd sort of give to everybody. And I guess that would be a very high performer in current role. You've got to be able to be strong in your functional expertise. I think your leader and your leader's leader are critical and your biggest allies in your career progression. And the third one would be perspective, making sure that you're not ploughing all your self-worth and your time and energy into your job exclusively, being able to stay balanced and well and have perspective. I think from a CTO perspective, the biggest thing would be to invest in yourself and have diverse, broad experiences and don't stay in your swim lane. If you don't know something, if you don't understand something, stay curious. Understand deeply how your business makes money, where all the cost drivers are. Like we call it zero-based budgeting. We literally start with a blank sheet of paper and we start off with a strategy and then we work backwards. So therefore, what does it mean from a CapEx investment perspective? What does it mean in terms of an org design perspective? What does it mean in terms of our sales and marketing, etc.? And then we build it from the ground up. So to be across those processes and be the best friend with the strategy head and the CFO, I think would obviously really quite critical as well. And I guess the other thing is don't hold yourself back. Don't have self-limiting beliefs. Because I, like you, Hugo, I do think that it's we've got such a ubiquitous skill set. The CPO, we have such influence and credibility and high levels of trust and got some really great skills that we can turn our hand to everything and anything. It's just a matter of making sure that we are the commerciality and really getting and understanding the business. And making sure that you've got a great team around you, because obviously it's not me coming up with the transformational agenda. It's a very, very clever team led by an ex-management consultant who is incredible, but I'm the one who actually then, I guess works with him and we make the magic happen together. So that would be, I guess, the other thing. Surround yourself with highly competent, skilled people.
Well, and I thank you, and I think that's sound counsel, and actually could come from any business leader, which I really like. That that could come from a CEO. So it's talking about the team around them and utilising their skills and expertise. So finally, then we've got this exciting news of the acquisition. What do you think that holds for the Chief Transformation Officer? What are you going to be busy doing over the next few months?
Oh, it's a great question. Look, it was only announced, the day before Christmas, literally. We're just coming back from our break. But look, change always brings opportunity. And so I'm really very much excited. So look, there will be no doubt integration opportunities that will have to be. We're sort of divesting from our relationship with News Corporation and now investing in in DAZN. There will be opportunities, both in terms of revenue and cost. So I'm very excited to see what comes about in it, because for me it feels like the next step change in the organisation in terms of our profitability and growth. And what does that mean for our people? That means great careers.
Yeah.
So if my first love, for me it's always about the employee experience and making sure that it's a great place to work. It's a growing place. It's a purposeful place. It's a place where we can do really great stuff. And we're working with a buyer who wants to invest in us, and wants to be they say the Netflix of sport globally. Well, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, that certainly does. Well, listen, best of luck with that, and thanks again for your time today. It's been really interesting. I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours about this stuff, but I really appreciate your insights and your advice for our community. So Thank you very much, Sally.
Pleasure. Lovely to be here.